it went from, there are anomalies that we detect underground to, I mean, Jagmeet Singh himself saying mass graves. Like, it just, everyone was trying to outdo the other. And again, why? It's because if you destroy your past, undermine your past, denounce your past, if you call yourself a genocidal country, Justin Trudeau has called Canada.
I know.
He won't say that about China, which some would say meets...
Well, they've got more of a claim to it than we do.
Well, I was going to say that province of Xinjiang, the Uyghur Muslims, when you call your own country a genocidal country, when you hide your own prime minister, when you destroy your own story, your own narrative, that is the largest kind of self-destruction in this cultural Marxism.
It is suicide.
And the decolonizers who say, well, Israel is the oppressor, so anything the oppressed do in return is justified, I fear that could actually one day come here. People saying anyone associated with the past, anyone associated with being white, with being powerful, any violence is acceptable.
If it's white and it's successful, it's bad, evil, and oppressive. Except it isn't. If it's white and successful, it's successful and it happens to be white. But it's not exclusively white.
I think Canada really has been one of the most successful countries in the world.
But that is part of our vulnerability, because it is receptive to foreigners, because we need immigration, and all people who've immigrated here came voluntarily. We don't have the legacy of slavery where people were involuntarily transported from another continent. Because of that, and because we do welcome foreigners, and because it's a country that has, look, we're not perfect, nobody is, but we have a relatively clean past. We never engaged in an aggressive war overseas. We never sought to conquer anybody. We populated our half of this continent, but the idea wasn't an invasion of someone else's territory. It was to build a nation, including the people that we found here. And because Canadians are sensitive to these issues and respect questions like rights in general, and always have, French and English, we're vulnerable to that charge, and because we're vulnerable to it, these charlatans hurl these outrageous charges at us and hang the founder of our country in effigy and compare him to Hitler, who, I need not tell your viewers, plunged all Europe into war and murdered 12 million innocent people in death camps.
Yeah, I'm worried about that. I mean, a nation is many things. If you look at the root of it, it's literally where you were born. The word natal or nativity, it's rooted in the same word, your nature. But if we denature our country, if we destroy the past, destroy our stories, denounce our heroes, well then nature abhors a vacuum and something else will fill that void.
You're a sitting duck.
And you can believe anything, especially if you're taught to hate yourself and your past. I fear that the utopia that's being promised to displace our flawed past will be carnage. Look around the world at others who have tried it, whether it was Stalin or Mao, to raise the past down to zero and to start again to build a perfect society. Maybe I'm sounding too dramatic, but frankly, the way the world has gone since the terrorist attack on October 7th, the vocal uprising in the West of so many anti-Western elements on our streets, that scares me. What do you think of what's been going on the last 6 weeks? In the West, I mean, put Israel aside.
You're talking about in response to the, look, I think it was orchestrated in advance by the, what we might call the Palestinian movement. They must have known that Israel would respond very forcefully militarily, and their plan was to mobilize the Muslim minorities in the Western countries to demonstrate in great numbers, focusing on what they judged to be, on the basis of what they'd seen. They didn't just imagine it, they had some reason to believe it, the weakness and cowardice of our Western governments, that if there were big demonstrations, they'd put pressure on Israel. And so that's part of their strategy. Now, I think it hasn't really worked. I mean, you can only demonstrate so far, particularly when it's an attempt ultimately to justify barbarous behavior, the outrages, the atrocities of October 7. And secondly, I'm glad to see the response. The largest demonstration of all was the pro-Israel one in Washington a couple of weeks ago, 250,000 people. And I understand another one of comparable size is finally coming in London. And you know, the Jewish community is nothing like as powerful in Britain as it is in America, or as numerous. But I don't think it's working, but I think it's a tactic. Now, I have been shocked, as I'm sure you and most of your viewers have, by some of the anti-Semitic manifestations on our campuses and in our media. But on the other hand, for many years, I've found both our campuses and our media constant sources of disappointment and concern. They are full of people who are capable of believing anything. You know, Chesterton said, when people stop believing in our Judeo-Christian values, it doesn't mean they won't believe in anything. It means they will believe in anything. And that's where we're getting to. But with all of that said, I think it is going to work out, because I think Israel essentially has been given a blank check by American opinion to do the necessary to assure that an October 7 never happens to them again. And when they destroy the military arm of Hamas and then sign the agreement with Saudi Arabia, I think it will so shift the correlation of forces that we will finally have a chance of a genuine peace agreement.
You are perhaps more optimistic about America's role than me. I see in Joe Biden, the vice president.
I'm not optimistic about him, just the country.
Okay, well, I'll take your answer in that light then, because I know that Biden was part of the Obama administration that strengthened Iran, that gave them...
And he went on appeasing Iran.
Yeah.
And look, I think he is now trying to reconcile the traditional Democratic Party of Roosevelt and Truman and Kennedy and Johnson, who were reasonable people. I mean, we might disagree with them in some ways, but they were patriotic Americans and friends of Israel. But, well, Roosevelt died before Israel was founded, but he was certainly a friend of the Jews. And on the other hand, Biden has, as you say, been not just a front row witness, but a key protagonist in the intrusion into the Democratic Party and the gnawing away within it of this woke minority, but this powerful, assertive minority. And he's now trying to reconcile traditional Democratic Party reasonableness with these anti-American, anti-Semitic, the extremists. And you know, at a certain point, you can't reconcile that. You know, you can't reconcile oil and water very well. But I think that's what's happening. But fortunately, there'll be an election in a year.